we can hold on for another minute. Or do you have any outstanding open mic questions or discussion topics or anything like that?
No, I mean I'm busy over with an update on Pack at the moment. I've been playing with Pack and Podman and figured out
Ooh.
why Pack and Podman didn't work together. We've got a PR going for that, but that isn't Paketo really related. That's CNCF build packs, but still vaguely interesting, I guess.
Yes.
If you care about running these things on platforms beyond Docker, then it was a fun little one with volume permissions. I hate containers and volume permissions now.
Mm.
Um, Docker, when you mount a volume to a mount point that doesn't exist, will mount it as root.
Mm.
Podman, when you mount a volume that to a mount point that doesn't exist, will mount it as the executing UID GID of the container at the time. So there's a
Okay.
slight difference there. That isn't actually the one that breaks Podman and back. Um, Critically, with Docker, when you first mount a volume to a mount point, the volume gains the permissions of that mount point. And then if you mount it to another volume, sorry, if you mount it to another container that doesn't have that mount point, then it will retain the ownership and permissions that it had when it was mounted to the first container.
Oh, okay.
So if you created a volume, when you
Hmm.
create it, it doesn't exist yet. But when you
Hmm.
first mount it to a container, if that container had a mount point that was owned by Forest, for instance, yeah,
Hmm.
that volume is now owned by Forest. And if you mount it to another container where the mount point doesn't exist, it will come up with UID GID of Forest. Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah.
Right. Um, that's kind of the way that you'd expect it to work. With Docker, if you mount the volume which is has this implicit ownership of Forest, if you try mounting that to a mount point that does exist with
Hmm.
Docker, it will give it the ownership of the mount point. It will change it and
Okay, so if the it
right.
was for if it was forest, and then
And you're mounting
inside
it
the
to Aussie
mount
Aussie,
point, yeah, yeah, yeah,
then it becomes Aussie Aussie under Docker. Under Podman, it retains the ownership of Forest.
ooh.
Yeah, because the volume has those permissions and that ownership under the covers. So all it does is you're mounting it to something, and it's like, well, hang on, no, you should have this because this is what the ownership is. This causes a problem because if you know your lifecycle execution well for build packs, the first lifecycle step is analyze, at least post zero point 0.7.
Hmm.
And that one runs as root with pack. It doesn't need to, it probably shouldn't, but it does. So
Hmm.
when it runs as root, it also, if you're running as an untrusted builder, it runs using the lifecycle image. Now, the
Okay.
lifecycle image critically cannot have a workspace directory with the build UID GID because the lifecycle image is common across many builders. And every builder can set their own UID GID. So workspace doesn't exist in the lifecycle image. This causes the workspace volume to become owned by root. When you get round to running the build steps, the workspace volume is still owned by root with Podman, but on Docker, it becomes owned by build UID GID. And that's where the separation occurs. So the solution is relatively simple. You create an ephemeral lifecycle image that contains the workspace directory with the correct permissions. And then when you mount under analyze, it comes up with the correct permissions in the first place.
Oh yeah,
Well, the
simple.
alternative, we
Sorry.
stop running the analyzer as root and run it as you build UID GID, but that's got other complications that we don't want to get into.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yep. Yeah. But it's easy to do. It's not difficult to achieve under the covers. So,
I will take your word for it.
all right. I
And
suggest we call this one then, given that nobody else has turned up.
all right. Well, thank you for that insight.
Yeah. Suffice to say, if you're ever mounting volumes into containers and the permissions matter, and you're sharing a volume between, I don't mean sharing in the sense of concurrently, but consecutively. If you're sharing a volume between multiple container instances, remember there's a difference in behavior between Podman and Docker regarding ownership.
Okay, I will commit that to memory and probably forget it, like 6 minutes from now. But
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
try my hardest.
It'll be one of those ones you'll try running something at some point on Podman and go, why doesn't this work? It works fine on Docker. And then hopefully you'll start remembering parts of this conversation.
And I'll remember enough the conversation to be
To
like,
ping
I should DM Ozzy and see see if he can help me.
Please do. There's no worries. I mean, I've got to get this stuff working somewhere. Anyway, hopefully it won't be a problem for Pack too much
Yeah, hopefully.
longer, which will be great because then we can start talking about Pack on Podman with UBI and all that great stuff that we're up to at the moment, which is a
Oh yeah.
complete thing. We're thinking about getting some blog articles written up for that stuff at the moment. So we're going to start blogging about the UBI Paketo image. And that's why they wanted me to get Pack working with Podman so that we can write that into the blog as well, make it all very shiny and very slightly red coated. So
You got to do what you got to do.
exactly. No worries. Okay. Well, have a rest of the day as a good one. Take
All
care
right. See ya.
and see you at the next one.